Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
On Thursday, President Biden delivered his State of the Union address, or was it a campaign speech? Hard to tell.
We got to talk about it, right? I mean, we've got to debrief on the State of the Union address, and it was hard to watch. It was hard to read, and I'm really glad we didn't jump right in and go right after it, because I've needed time to get back, to outline it, to think about it, to watch all the pieces fall. I mean, you know how emotional these things get me. Look, this is an Italian conversation. Of all the things that you learned growing up, I mean, where would you rank the concept of respect as far as human relations go? Because for me, it was like top of the heap.
Yeah, loyalty and respect, and I think it could be our Italian heritage, but I hope it's a human heritage.
You got to respect people. You got to respect people,
especially which we've lost. Teachers, law enforcement,
people the way you want to be treated. I mean, there's just something about this concept of respect. So when I watch our politicians get out there, and I'm pathetic, Michael, I lose it. These people lose me. Marching down the aisle, they lose me. I mean, they lose me from the start. It's like the most painful clown show. It's mind-boggling to me.
You had the same sense I did, and I don't want to force this sense on anybody else, but clown show came to mind. I think I used the analogy, it was a drunk bar fight, and sooner or later, everybody acts like a drunk. If you want to stick with clown show, well, I think we all know which one was Bozo, but Emmett Kelly was there, so were a lot of others. But there was plenty to go around. I didn't feel any more comfortable with the behavior of well, they weren't as bad as the Democrats, but close to. There was enough to go around on both sides.
Oh, there was. And the handful of Republicans that decided they were going to go ahead and buy in on the clown show and try to provoke the situation, that made it worse. I mean, look, this is the world watching how America, the branches of government, attempt to communicate with each other and sit together in regards to the common state of the enterprise of our union. When Joe Biden said the State of the Union is strong, I think I threw up a little bit. I mean, the State of the Union, maybe the state of his excitement over his reelection, or the state of whatever he's happy about. But the idea of this concept being Joe, read the room. These people are at war with each other. Read the room. Do you call this union? This is supposed to be a model of the union? How can these people take themselves seriously?
We said on your morning show before the speech, do you really think an American president, not a Democrat, not a progressive, not a liberal / socialist / afraid of half of his party that's turned Islamic and anti-American, will an American president honestly address the American people? And is there an American audience to even receive it if he did? And the answer is you didn't get that. What you got was a campaign event at a level we have never seen before with the State of the Union, number one. Yeah. And then number two, you got a very partisan speech to just those loyal partisan minions it was shirts and skins personified. And remember, it's a state of our union meaning unity and on the essentials. And then it wasn't even an honest assessment. It's funny, if you want to contrast it with something, I think I sent it to you. Robert Kennedy did a 9-minute State of the Union. Now, he's an independent candidate. He doesn't get a national primetime audience, but he made a tape. And it was a very, not political, a very honest assessment of what we were intended to be from our founding, how we've met challenges before. And I think from his unique perspective, it's fair for him to view his uncle and his father and a period of time in America and compare it to today. And he's very honest. We lead the world in obesity. We lead the world in chronic disease. We lead the world in a lot of bad things, and it doesn't have to be. I don't want people necessarily to vote for RFK or tell anybody how to vote, but I would say watch that, because at least that's somebody in 2024 who loves America and is honest enough to look you in the eye and give you the state you already get.
Yeah, and I would say that on the respect factor right now, if for people that are concerned about respectful conversation, and I'm not talking about polite. There's a big difference between being polite and being respectful. Sometimes people who are respectful have to tell you things you don't want to hear.
Exactly.
Right? But they're willing to do it in a humble and a self-effacing fashion, as opposed to yelling and shouting at you. So let's start with the shout fest. So first thing I heard was Russia. First, right out of the gate, we had to go to Russia. All right. And pit the whole question about Russia versus Ukraine. I don't know exactly if that was only to put Speaker Johnson in a difficult position, because there's a lot of Republicans who support Ukraine, and they're trying to come up with middle ground in that regard. So maybe his goal was to put Johnson.
No, it was to set up the Trump line.
Right.
But
all right. But even before that, when Biden walked up and walked onto the platform, protocol is he permits the Speaker of the House. He's in the Speaker's house. The Speaker of the House to introduce him to the body. That happens every single address. Biden just blew right past that and started delivering his speech and left Johnson standing there.
Well, and that was after being 15 minutes late.
So what's Mike Johnson going to do? Gavel down the president and say, "Excuse me, Mr. President, I speak first"? That would have been pretty cool if he had done that. But of course, so Mike's standing there. He's never been here before, first time out of the box, and he gets stomped. So, okay, so Biden starts, and first thing out of the gate is Russia. Okay. Then we go to January 6th, and all I can think of is you. I'm thinking of the Pabach. Here we go.
Oh, yeah.
We went from Russia to the Pabach. Now let's talk about January 6th and all of that stuff that happened and how the country almost came to an end. And then we go to abortion. Ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. Now we're in a complete campaign rally. This has nothing to do with the person sitting on the other end watching this thing. And I think I saw 32 million was the statistic we got on how many people actually watched. 32 million.
I hope 32 million were wise enough to catch the most important thing, that they were talking. First of all, they were talking to themselves in that room, and they were talking to their constituents outside of that room, but not to all of America, and certainly not respectfully and honestly. I mean, I think it's very telling of the very disease in America that we have not a servant-hearted governing body, but a group of elitists that think it's about them when it's really about the American people.
I mean, let me say something that'll get me in all kinds of trouble. But okay, I say it. I'm saying it out loud. When we're together on your morning show, I'm going to be saying it. I'm going to be saying it on the public square. I'm going to say it everywhere, because somebody's got to say it. I saw more stupidity per square inch on that television screen than anywhere else in the American political process. And this is our Congress.
For the 2 or 3 or maybe 5 at best we'd lose, America would be better off if everybody in that room was disqualified and replaced.
I'm telling you, pick the phone book up and let's get 535 new players.
So he's 15 minutes late.
Yeah.
He is in someone else's house, and it slips his mind that he has to be introduced by the Speaker of that house. There's some disrespect for the opponent. And then there's the whole energy thing. I brought this up on your morning show that Katie Couric did a very clever way of getting people to respond. Had she done it any other way, they wouldn't have. So I don't even know if she was. She might have been on a plane. But so on State of the Union night, Katie Couric on Twitter says, "Hey, I'm on a plane and I can't watch. How's the president doing?" What a brilliant way to get people. And of course, everybody from the left silo. "Oh my God, if you close your eyes, it's like when he was young. Oh, his energy is great. Oh, he's knocking them dead. Oh, he's doing terrific." Of course, the other half of America is, having an opposing view. That's part of the problem, that we live in these two tribal extremes. But it is an interesting question. 15 minutes late, doesn't follow protocol, and then energy that waned by the end. But throughout, and even when he was strong, was that energy or anger? I guess it depends if you were a Democrat or a Republican watching. I'm kind of fascinated what independents think, and I want to cut to the chase and say this. I think that State of the Union that's worthy to discuss is the view from America, which is complete division. So the State of the Union is weak. We've never been more. The only other time we were more divided than this, we were at war with each other.
Yep.
But what was the view from the world? Or as we said on your morning show, if you're Hamas, if you're Iran, you're like, ooh, that's interesting. 2-state solution. If you're Bibi Netanyahu, and now, of course, an even bigger bombshell, the hot mic, where he says he's bragging he's going to have a come to Jesus meeting with Bibi. So we had Obama when he was president saying after the election, I'll be able to do a lot more. And now you've got Biden's big gaffe with a hot mic. I'm going to have a come to Jesus with Bibi. And then somebody whispers in his ear, oh, we might have a hot mic. Okay, well, good. So it was not without gaffes either, including the famous one, which was, and he's apologizing now for saying illegal immigrant, but he's not apologizing for getting Lincoln Riley's name wrong. It's a doozy. Look, and again, we're all in this together is the slogan of your morning show, because at the end of the day, everything you saw on that screen was complete dysfunction. And guess what? We're all in that dysfunction together.
I have to seriously wonder how many people in that room are on prescription medication.
I don't know, but I am now after watching.
Michael began in talk radio over 30 years ago. David has been working in the field of public policy and media for over 40 years. They've been around and seen a lot. To learn more about Michael and David, visit 1850mainstreet.com.
Let's go back to the question of abortion. Here's what Joe Biden said after all, in addition to all the rhetoric, all the look up in the stands, and here's a story. The fact that in vitro fertilization is being completely manipulated off the facts and the reality.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What Americans really want to do and how they want to do it. All that stuff. Forget all the manipulation and blah, 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 blah. Here's what he says. If America sends me a Congress that supports me, I will make Roe versus Wade the law of the land again. Giant applause. This is Biden's going to bring back Roe versus Wade. That's all that'll come out of it. Biden's going to bring back Roe versus Wade. Okay, let's parse the promise for just a second and ask, how can you possibly ask anyone to take you seriously? How can you be taken seriously when you say, if America sends me a Congress that will support this? Now, what does that look like? Number one, you're the minority in the House. Number two, it looks like you'll probably stay the minority in the House, but let's just say, who knows, maybe somebody out-organizes, the D's out-organize the R's, and they get to a slim majority in the House of Representatives. Okay, now Joe's got a shot to pass a law that would make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again. So now he gets to the Senate. Right now, he's got the majority in the Senate, but he's only got the majority by two.
Yeah.
And by 2 or 1. And the fact of the matter is that when you run the numbers, it doesn't look like they're going to gain anything.
Nowhere near 60.
And that's the point. Right. And nobody seems to remember, not the media. You know, when he makes that promise, you would think that between CNN and CSNBC and MSNBC and CNBC and Fox, some commentator somewhere would say, well, what does that actually look like? That looks like you have to have 60 people in the Senate that are willing to make that decision. Now, it's nowhere near close. The last time they had 60 was 2008 for 24 months after Obama won, and they did Obamacare. You got to go back to, there's only been a couple of times since World War II that anybody had a majority in the Senate big enough to get to 60. He's thinking that, so since nobody knows that, he makes that, it's not only is it a pie crust promise, it's virtually a fraud that he could actually do that. But that's the rallying cry, the false promise. And I guess as long as it sounds good, who cares?
He didn't say Christian nationalism by name, but that's kind of what his close was all about.
Ancient ideas.
Ancient ideas. There you have it.
Ideas.
So if your God and your Bible is something you want to live, that's an ancient idea. And that is an enemy of the state because it becomes an enemy of the border, it becomes an enemy of gay marriage, it becomes enemy of transgenderism and so on and so forth. And we've talked about this, and I think this is really dangerous. I think, somebody's got to fill the lane, but a lane has been formed. If RFK can get exposure, he will fill this lane perfectly. There is going to be people that are sick of these tribal extremes. And they all went too far. And he desperately did in this. So I think the question of the hour is that view, the view of how it looked in America and then the view of how it looks at the world. And where do you go from here? And I think where you go from here is there has to be, like abortion you bring up. But you know what? Time and time again, when we do the research, abortion's kind of a split issue. America is not as pro-abortion as the left thinks and tries to coerce. And it's more reasonable about abortion. They're really concerned about the border invasion more so than abortion. They're more concerned about debt and the economy, unfortunately. But so I don't know. It's like when you're judging a boxing match. I think some of the things that they think were big punches weren't as big or landed as they thought. The energy was perceived as angry by many. The gaffes were there. The being late was there. The not respecting the house was there. The attacks that went beyond. Remember, we always talk about that element of going too far.
Mm-hmm.
The going too far was there, especially in the close.
Well, especially when he started to ad lib. I mean, I thought what we had was old Senator Joe Biden, even before he had his brain surgery, which doesn't mean that he did. I mean, he was sharp after the surgery, an amazing comeback. But in the early days, I mean, Biden was a brawler. He was an Irish brawler, quick-witted, all the ego and the pizzazz. The guy has been a super salesman, confrontational antagonist his entire political career.
He's been the used car salesman of the Senate.
He's tough. He's tough. And so now you got all that in an 81-year-old package. And the amazing thing was, I don't know if the extremists in the Republican side, the hat wearing, button wearing, someone interrupts and heckles how dare anyone heckle the president of the United States? But what's really amazing about this is they heckled him.
How dare the president of the United States? I'm not being
go ahead
devil's advocate here, but how dare the president of the United States heckle the Supreme Court that can't speak and defend itself?
Whoa.
2 feet away from him.
Whoa.
I'm saying
that was frightening.
Yeah, I'm just disgusted with all of them. So, I'm not disagreeing.
No.
I wouldn't sit there and heckle a president of the United States, but then again, I wouldn't heckle an 83-year-old cognitively impaired man because I was taught to respect my elders.
And I was also, what's really weird about this is Biden should know better. He should know that if you show that level of disrespect to the Supreme Court, court's got no army. The court exists based upon a position in our culture of moral authority and accrued political integrity over centuries. Now you sit there and you leer at the Supreme Court and say, now you're going to get yours. Now you're going to find out how what you did to women's going to come back. You're going to know. He did everything but point his finger, but he looked dead at him. He sneered right at him, and the cameras all knew what was coming, and they immediately went to the Supreme Court, and there they are sitting there. What in the world what is the world thinking watching this? America's at war. They're at war inside the House of Representatives. They're at war. It's a barroom fight.
Yeah, they're at war with them, at war with themselves. But there are some serious wars and bad players on the theater that were watching that too. Their view really scares me. All right, so let's kind of cut to the chase and ask this one big question. And I'm going to do it this way. I want you to honestly answer. Even if you took 2 or 3 really good Biden moments, I would probably still not call them good, but most would say, okay, that was a good moment. That was a good moment. I mean, I remember when I used to watch Bill Clinton, for example, and I just sit there and go, why was I going, because I knew he was winning hearts and minds.
Yeah, he was good.
He was good at it. I never felt that way watching Biden. So it's
when I would watch Obama.
Obama would do the same.
I know he's lying as sure.
I'd be embarrassing myself and insulting you if I said I ever felt that watching Joe Biden. I didn't. But let's give him 2 or 3 great moments. I don't even think they existed, but his best 3 moments can't live up to his 3 worst moments, which is what everyone's going to be talking about, and far more than the 32 million that watched it and didn't catch it. And that is, are you serious? You're going to have a come to Jesus meeting with Bibi Netanyahu?
That hot mic was a disaster.
A disaster. So is Lincoln Riley, who is alive and well at the University of Southern California. But I mean, and then he goes on MSNBC and he apologizes for referring to her killer as an illegal immigrant? Are you kidding me? I'm a father of, I'm going to lose it. I'm a father of a daughter. Are you kidding me? Let me tell you something. His best moment, and they didn't even have it, can't live up to the disaster that's going to create it. But I said it this way, cutting to the chase. Do you really think suddenly people have changed their mind about the border? Do you think suddenly they've changed their mind about the price of gasoline? Suddenly they've changed their mind about the grocery store and what little's in their cart and how big it adds up to? I don't think he achieved anything. And you know as well as I do historically, you can never point to a State of the Union, even when it's as late as March, they still haven't given us an explanation, that's had any kind of impact on an election. So what is this all?
Well, and they haven't told us who wrote the speech either.
And won't.
I think it's about one thing, and I'd really like to know what you think about this. I think it's about one thing. He went there to prove to people that he's going to fight so hard,
and that he's not senile, that he can have energy, that he can fight,
and that in so fighting, you can't legitimately get rid of him. That's all that was a job interview to Podesta and Soros and the people who have the power to replace him at the push of a button. That you can't get rid of me because there's too many people watching now.
I was going to say it best. If anything would happen to Joe Biden, or if he would lose in November and go off into the sunset, the moment I'll remember most was 64 days into his presidency, because it was all a game, a deal that was cut in South Carolina, an old man hid in a basement and played the COVID card. And he comes out, doesn't have a news conference for 64 days, to the point where everybody's like, is this guy even going to have a news conference? Is this guy even president? What's going on? So he finally gets smoked out. And when he has that news conference, he puts Kamala Harris in charge of the border. I think I'm the only one that noticed it. I hate to bring it up that way, but just for the sake of...
No, I've been watching for 3 years, and so far I haven't heard anybody else been saying.
So, remember what America was saying at that point? Oh, he's just going to win the election, and then they're going to put Kamala in there. They're going to get their Hillary, because remember, Biden represents the Obama apparatus. Kamala was the Clinton apparatus. Podesta's the only one that's ran both 8-year administration.
Longest serving president in America.
So it all made sense. Yeah, use the old man, get the election won, and then put the female in president. And his first news conference, he gives her the poison apple, like a Disney musical, and says she's in charge of the border, knowing full well it was going to destroy her political future forever. And there was nothing she could do about it, Podesta could do about it, any of the Clinton apparatus could do about it. I would say, to your point, 64 days in, a little more than 64 days away from a general election, was that State of the Union a poison apple? Not to Trumpism, not to establishment Republicans, not to Bibi Netanyahu, not to the half of the American people that don't see the world or America the way he does, but right to John Podesta and right to George Soros. That was a Scranton Joe
bar fight speech.
Yep. What did we used to do in the Italian neighborhood?
Goodness, this is radio, and you can't see the hand gesture.
But that was to you. That much I think he did achieve, as far as changing polling numbers very much, or the perception that, he had energy. He looked, to me, more moments were frighteningly, as you know, in the late stages, the sunset stages of Alzheimer's and dementia, you get a lot of anger.
All right, we got to come back.
Process.
We got to come back to this because I got a hot mic question. We'll come back.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.